Hi guys, in this tutorial we're talking about loops, and also in this video there's going to be an Easter egg, which is a sequence of 8 characters. So 2 characters, 2, 2, 2, so 4 pairs. And to make things simpler, I will give you the first pair, which is L1. The second and third pair you'll need to find in this video, either in visual form or in audio form. And then given all these 3 pairs, you'll need to figure out what the last pair is. And the first student to send me an email with the 8 characters or message me on Teams is going to receive a prize as part of the Codefest event. So once you know all 4 pairs, just let me know. Right, and in C++, like in any other programming language, loops are a fundamental concept. So we're going to cover only the for loop and the while loop. There are other loops, but you'll learn them later on. So for loop has this syntax. For example, if you've done Java loops, then you're already familiar with them. In fact, the syntax is exactly the same. So you have your declaration of your variable, which is going to act as a counter. It goes from 0 to while it is less than 5. And each time the cycle is completed within the loop, we increase the variable by 1. So we can do something like print the variable itself. And then we can see how the loop operates. We can see 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the console. We start at 0, and each time the cycle of the loop finishes, we increase the variable by 1. And then it will eventually become 4. 4 is less than 5, so it will succeed. When it becomes 5, 5 is not less than 5, and therefore the loop will stop. And with this information, you too can build a for loop in C++. Right, now let's talk about the while loop. Again, it is very similar to its counterpart in Java, as in it has exactly the same syntax. It takes in a Boolean variable or some kind of a Boolean expression. We already talked about Booleans in the last video. So in this one, I'm just going to create is running and set it to true. While is running, we print something to the screen like is running. And then we say is running is false. So effectively, we're running this once, and it's kind of like an if statement at this point. So it's printing is running just once. When it gets here, it will check this Boolean value, which is true. Therefore, we do the cycle of the loop. We print this. We then set the value to false, or set the value of this variable to false. And then on the next cycle, it checks the value of this variable and says, well, it's false, so I'm not going to continue. Now let's make this more interesting. So if we do something like that, and then we say it's less than 5, and then do the same. This time I'm not going to print this, but we are going to print this, and then we're going to increase value of I. I++ is the same as that. You're adding 1. This is just much nicer. And you can see that in the terminal we have obtained exactly the same result. And we start at 0, very similar to how we did in the for loop. Then we go until 5, and we print the value of I. when the cycle finishes, which is just one execution or one iteration of a loop, then we increase the variable value by 1. And it does the check again and then essentially gives us the same result. There's also the do while loop. They are one, as in, well, almost. While does the check first and then does the run. The do while does the run first and then checks the condition. But for now, we're just focusing on the for loop and the while loop. So that's that. You can also nest loops, for example. And that's, by the way, a shortcut. So if you type for and then select the for snippet from Visual Studio, press enter and it gives you this, which is like a template. Let's go with int. Let's rename this to y. Since we're going to be working with the 2D grid, I want to show you a nested loop. Let's go with 10 and y++. So these are going to be our rows, as in y0 is the first row and so on. And then I'm going to copy this and rename this to x, which gives us columns. And if we print something like, I don't know, just print 0, I guess. And then when the row finishes printing, because this will be printed without the new line operator, which means it will be printed on the same line, we need the new line operator over here. And we should see a two-dimensional grid. So 0, 1, 2, 3 are the things that we had from the previous while loop, and you can see that we now are printing lots of zeros. In fact, there should be 10 columns and 10 rows. So if you think about it, you could kind of create a 2D grid and have a player in one of these positions so that they can move around in that grid, effectively giving a two-dimensional map. And if you followed previous tutorials, then you know how to take user input. You could use that in the loop, and if player wanted to go right or go left, you just check what the user typed versus, well, you check what the user typed and then you kind of go. And then by figuring out which position you're at, for example, we'll just have some values here, like player X start at 0, 0, and then kind of move around. You can then also check in the loop which X and Y correspond to player X and Y. Instead of printing 0, you could print P or print 1 to signify that this is where the player is currently at, or the cell to which the player belongs. And then as you move around the level, you could then print player's location at each sort of frame. So what I'm trying to get to is essentially getting some sort of movement in 2D space, but using terminal, which is entirely possible with everything that we've covered so far, which is getting user input, using an if statement to check the input itself, and then doing some operation. If this is a bit more difficult than what you wanted to do, what you could do is just print a multiplication table. That could be your task, which is something that you may have done already as part of your normal coursework. But if you haven't, have a go at this, and it should go something like 1 multiplied by 10 is 10, 2 multiplied by 10 is 20, and so on. So that's the easy task. And an extension task is to print the 2D grid, have a player in there somewhere, and move the player around the sort of map. Right, on this note, I'm going to just recap. We're done the for loop, we're done the while loop. These are very similar to what you would use in Java. In fact, if we didn't have this, and then we had something like system.out.println, that would be Java code. So you might as well pretend that you're writing Java when you're learning the basics of C++, because they are similar. Right, on that note, see if you can figure out the Easter egg and let me know. Thanks for watching.